Elon Musk and the team over XAI had just unveiled Grok for the latest AI model, and it has effectively passed every single AI model on the benchmarks and is now essentially the smartest AI in the world. Today on the podcast, I'm going to be breaking down the benchmarks where it's at. I've also tested it hands-on, and I'll show you some demos, what it can do. It's added new features with new voices, and they've teased some things that they're going to be starting in the next couple of weeks, like video training. So all of that we're going to be breaking down, and this is just on the eve of XAI raising about $10 billion in debt and equity. So they have tons of capital, over, I believe, $17 billion raised total. And they're finally showing off one of their biggest kind of tools and features from this. So the first thing I wanted to mention with this is they came and did essentially the whole product announcement. They did this all on a live stream over on X, which makes sense since XAI recently acquired X. So this is pretty much what you would expect to happen for a product release like this. Elon got on with the XAI team and shared a couple interesting demos and benchmarks that XAI has been able to hit with Grok 4. They kind of talk about the rate of progress, which has been really fast considering 12 months ago Grok 2 wasn't really a thing. And they essentially highlighted as, I guess, one of their big breakthroughs that they've made, this test called Humanities Last Exam, which is kind of a funny name for an AI model test. But this is a benchmark that is like very, very difficult for most humans. They estimate that most humans would probably get about 5% on this test. XAI came in and I believe got like 40%, so did very, very well. The questions are very tricky. They have linguistics and chemistry and mathematics, and essentially it's like humanity's last test, because once the AI model can beat this test, we're all cooked. That's kind of the concept of this test. It is really one of the most challenging tests. And it's kind of interesting because this is coming from, I believe, just like somewhere between 6 months and a year ago, Sam Altman was saying that they were running into a challenge finding hard enough benchmarks for their AI models because the AI models were starting to hit like 80s or 90% on certain benchmarks. And so he was like, put out a call pretty much for harder tests. And this is one of those kind of challenging tests, Humanities Last Exam, which Grok effectively did, a very, very good job of essentially working on and achieving, a pretty impressive score. The other thing that they kind of talked about and unveiled was how fast their training compute is, how fast it's scaling, and how much smarter it's getting. They were able to show that with essentially just giving more compute to their AI models. And the reason they bring it up is it's kind of their competitive advantage. They built something called Colossus, which is essentially a cluster of over 100,000 GPUs in a data center in Memphis. Some people, it has like some controversy because some people are like, they just spun up this giant data center, put a whole bunch of diesel turbines, generators to run the whole thing. So there wasn't even enough power there because they weren't able to find somewhere. It's obviously a pretty tight market for this type of compute. But because they were able to do that, they found that the more compute they gave to the model, the smarter it got. This is very similar to what we hear from OpenAI and from other players like Meta. But at first when they were asking it questions, it would be getting something like 5%. And eventually they were able to get it up to 26.9% as they just gave it more compute. So the thing that they then mentioned was they were able to get it to 27% basically with just more compute. And then when they gave it tools, or what they're calling tools, they were able to get it to 41%. So, and I believe this is on the, Humanities Last Exam benchmark. So it got much smarter, got much better, and it was just with giving it more compute and then, of course, giving it tools. So what exactly are these tools? You can imagine things like calculators, basically giving it frameworks and tools and software to help do certain types of problems. I think we've seen like other AI models working on this. I think OpenAI has these types of things embedded. Elon Musk says specifically, he said that companies like SpaceX and Tesla have way more advanced tool sets that they use for a lot of what they do with AI, and that Grok will be getting those in the future. But Grok doesn't have any of these tools that major companies have. So that is kind of interesting. After they kind of showed where it was at on that specific benchmark, they then talked about, beyond just giving it more compute and more tools, they also gave it more time. And when they gave it more time, it got up to 50.7%. So it is interesting to see what the levers are that you can pull to actually get these models to become better and better. Now, they did show a bunch of live demos, which I'm always impressed with live demos. I think we've seen enough controversy in the past where you have companies like Google who famously lost like $100 billion in market cap because they did a live demo and it failed. This is in the early days. I think now we've like learned and we just keep doing that. Google recently did a live demo at Google I/O that I was at earlier, like a couple months ago. And one of their demos didn't work out exactly how they wanted. They just ended it and moved on. And I actually thought that that was great for them. I think people want to know it's real because before that, Google also had a lot of controversy for doing a demo where we found out after the fact it was essentially staged or fake. They edited selectively something together and then it lost a lot of trust. So I think people have learned, these software companies have learned, we'd rather, hear the, we'd rather see like a demo fail and know that it's real than not. So OpenAI, they did a bunch of demos. They asked it some really complex math questions to see how it did. It effectively solved that problem perfectly. Elon Musk said, referencing this, that Grok 4 is now better than a PhD in virtually every single category. It is smarter and will answer academic questions better. Now, they make a big kind of point about academic questions versus real world knowledge, and there's kind of all these different things we talk about. But as far as academic questions go, which they're training it on, it's very smart. And this is great because it's something that OpenAI, ChatGPT, I think we've all had the experience, especially when it first came out. You'd ask it some sort of math problem and it would just like, what's 10 plus 14, and it would like get it wrong, and it was just so frustrating. So now we're at really complex PhD level math problems and it's able to solve them. So I think we've made some really big strides. They showed a demo where they asked it to simulate two black holes colliding, what the physics were, what that would look like, and Grok was able to create a simulation, which was really interesting. There's like an animation of two black holes moving together, and they went through its thought process, a thought for 324 seconds, and it was really interesting because they actually went and were looking for, like, you could see it searches. It searches the internet. So one of its searches was simple mathematical tool for gravitational waveform from binary black hole merger, including in spiral merger ringdom. So like very complex things that I don't even have any idea what they mean, but they looked through all of these different websites and web results. They looked at a whole bunch of very academic things and calculators, and we're looking at like academic physics papers to help them. And then they created this whole simulation. So this is a very, very advanced tool. On virtually every benchmark, it is now exceeding. I think artificial analysis is my favorite benchmark platform to look at. And I'll break down their tweet thread because they said they got early access and tested it against all the other models. And it essentially is winning, but not in every category. So on intelligence, it's winning, but not on speed or cost. So I'll break that down in a minute. But the other thing that was pretty interesting in their demo, they showed like a couple of other interesting things it can do. They asked it search through all of the XAI employees and find the one that has the weirdest profile picture. There's a lot of interesting points, but one of the biggest things is like it doesn't have any sort of internal access to anything. It's just on the internet. It went and searched through. It was able to find, who ex-employees were. It was able to define what a weird profile picture was, and it pulled it up and brought it. So Greg Yang was the winner of that, which if you're watching over on YouTube, he's got a pretty, I'm screen sharing, he's got a pretty funny profile picture, or on Spotify. But in any case, they then went and were showing on Humanities Last Exam basically where their model ranked compared to other AI models. So I believe that their final result on Grok 4 Heavy. So they have two models that they've kind of announced. One is just Grok 4, and Grok 4 got 25.4%. I might have misquoted it earlier, but it's 25.4%. So if we compare that to something like Google Gemini 2.5 Pro, Google Gemini 2.5 Pro got 21.6%. OpenAI's O3 model got 21% with no tools. But we know that oftentimes you'll give these companies tools. And so if you actually are giving Gemini 2.5 Pro tools, if you're giving OpenAI O3 tools, and if you're giving Grok 4 tools, all of the benchmark data moves up quite a bit. Grok 4, then that's when they hit that basically 40%. Is if you give it tools. But there's one extra feather in the cap because Grok 4 with tools is at about 40%. Gemini 2.5 Pro is at like 27%. O3 is at like 25%. So Grok 4 is definitely winning at like 38%, almost 40%. But if you give it what is now called Grok 4 Heavy, and OpenAI has a version of this as well, where it's basically like I believe it's called like large or something, but it's like just giving it more compute. You pretty much give it more money, you give it permission to run longer and whatnot. They've also explained that Grok 4 Heavy, they basically ask it one question and they ask it 6 different times, and they have the AI model have like 6 agents spin up that all try to solve the same problem, and then all of those 6 models talk to each other after the fact and they share. And they say sometimes if it's a really complicated question, only one of those models or one of those agents or 2 of those agents will actually solve it, but they'll share their findings. They'll all talk, validate, pick the winning, and give it back to you. And if that's the case on Humanities Last Exam, Grok 4 Heavy, so 6 AI agents all talking to each other and coming up with a response, got 44.4% on the exam. So all-time record. I mean, we're, Gemini 2.5 Pro, even with tools, is at like 27%, and they're at 44%. So very significant jump, way above OpenAI, way above Google Gemini. And I think this is kind of the future that we'll be seeing. Now, how do you get access to this? If you want access to Grok 4 Heavy, they actually have a new subscription tier, which is $300 a month. You kind of, if you're starting to see this with all of these AI models, OpenAI was like the first that came out with their $200 a month tier. Perplexity just launched a $200 a month tier. We have Claude that has, their, I think it's $100 a month for their max tier, or maybe it's 200. So we're seeing all of these higher tiers. I think this might be the biggest we've seen yet, $300, but the responses are really, really good. So if you are in an industry where you need, super accurate responses, this is probably the way that you want to go, using a tool, using something like Grok 4 Heavy. So this is very interesting. They also showed some demos because they've come out with some new voices and they've updated their voice model significantly. I think the biggest updates are that it is much faster, so it's snappier in its actual responses to what you're saying. They did a funny demo where they actually pulled out ChatGPT and Grok's new voice assistant next to each other, and they asked it the same questions, these kind of like rapid fire questions, and OpenAI's sort of struggled and interrupted a bit, and it was kind of awkward and cumbersome, and Grok just answered the questions very quickly, very straightforward, very fast, low latency. So I think that's interesting. They do have also some new models. The one thing that I do want to mention, if you want to try out the latest version of Grok 4, after seeing the whole announcement and everything, I was excited, went to the app and I didn't see it. I just saw Grok 3 still. You have to actually go to the App Store and update your app. Once you update your app, you can get access, but it's also on grok.com. So if you have a subscription to their premium, or if you have a subscription to like Twitter Premium or something like that, it comes with it, or I believe you could just get it on its own. So in any case, there's a bunch of ways to get it. You get access to Grok 4, and I think they have some free credits for Grok 4 as well. If you want access to Grok 4 Heavy, that's going to be $300 a month. So definitely much more. On all of the benchmarks, it is doing incredibly well. I wanted to specifically shout out how it's doing on the artificial analysis. They said, this is essentially from Artificial Analysis, the benchmark company. They said, they tweeted this out. They said, we've run our full suite of benchmarks on Grok 4, and it achieves an artificial analysis index of 73, ahead of OpenAI O3 at 70, Google Gemini 2.5 Pro at 70, Anthropic's Claude 4 Opus at 64, and DeepSeek R1 at 68. Okay. There is just kind of interesting because they run a bunch of different benchmarks and they kind of give like an overall score, which I actually appreciate. So Grok 4 overall its overall score is much higher than it's higher than everyone else. So it's the best, but it's not by a lot, right? Overall, it's like 73 out of 70, and you have 2 other people at 70, which is Google and OpenAI both at 70. So it's like okay, so it's just like slightly better. I think what's interesting here is that it is a lot better in some areas, but not as good in other areas. So the key areas where I think it struggles is it doesn't have as big of a context window as Google Gemini. So it has like 250,000 tokens as a context window. Gemini 2.5 Pro has 1 million, although that's like crazy. And I think Google's just giving stuff away for free to get users. No hate for me on that. I think that's amazing. Not everyone does that, but they're definitely getting beat out there because they're still ahead of Claude 4 Sonnet and Claude 4 Opus, who only do 200,000. And OpenAI's O3 model only does 200,000. So they're ahead, 50,000 tokens ahead of Claude and OpenAI, but still way behind Google, who it's crazy. 1 million tokens is crazy. The other place that I would say that they are behind, so they're leading in the math benchmarks. They're leading in the GPQA Diamond. They're leading in Humanities Last Exam. They're leading in the MMLU Pro and AME benchmarks. Their speed of how fast they actually put out responses, so how fast you're actually getting a response from Grok, they can put out about 75 output tokens a second, which is slower than OpenAI, whose O3 model is doing 188. So, significantly slower, more than half. OpenAI's double as fast. Gemini 2.5 Pro is also at 140, so they are double as fast. Claude 4 Sonnet thinking is at 85. So they're like, 10 tokens a second slower than Anthropic's Claude 4 Sonnet, but they are faster than Claude 4 Opus thinking, which is 66. So honestly, they're kind of comparable to Claude, but they're definitely slower than OpenAI and Gemini. So all in all, I think the big takeaways here is that it costs a little bit more money. It is a little bit slower. It is smarter and better at the benchmarks. And I wonder if that's like a trend we see. I know that like every company kind of is fighting with that. You don't want to be too slow. You don't want to cost too much. But at the same time, like results and accuracy and results do matter. So you also want to make the best, most intelligent AI model. And they have achieved that. They have made the best and most intelligent model possible. So if you value accuracy over other things, this is, I think, definitely probably the AI model that you would that you'd want to use. So overall, very impressive model. I've had some hands-on experience testing the model out and asking it a bunch of different questions. I've been impressed with the results. I'll continue to keep you updated on what it's actually able to do. I'll end you with just me talking to the Grok 4 model, and I'll talk to one of their, I believe this is one of their new voices. So I'll play this on my phone. Hey Grok, I'm on a podcast right now talking to millions of people about AI. What's one thing that you want to tell them about the future of Grok 4? Looks like it glitched out. It actually had a funny glitch in the demo that it was doing. I'll try one more time and we'll see if we give it a chance. It just showed on my screen, it says start talking, so it like wasn't even picking up my voice. One thing that I think people could accuse me of is like, oh, maybe your internet's bad. I don't think that's the problem. I think it's probably Grok 4 is suffering from an overuse right now. That's why I like to do these live demos. This isn't me editing my video or podcast after the fact and being like, oh no, look, like whatever. Like this is, I did a demo and it didn't work for that second. I was using it earlier and it was working. I think the usage is high, but let's give it one more try. And if this doesn't work, then I'll show you some of its responses and some of the interesting voice settings that it also has. Hey Grok, what is a good movie that's coming out this summer?
Oh, you're gonna love
So it started talking, it glitched out, it kind of cut out halfway through.
Mission Impossible.
Yeah, it looks like it's just glitching hard. One thing that I did want to mention is some of these settings that it has that I think are cool. They got some new voices. They also have a feature on the actual app where you can adjust the speed of the AI model that's talking. I'm a huge fan of that. I was playing around with it. It's sadly not working for us right now. But I was able to adjust it and go 2x speed. So when it's talking to me, it was going really fast because what was actually happening was I would ask it a question and it would type out the response and then it would also talk at the same time. But the voice was quite a bit behind like the actual text that was getting typed out. So I was sitting there like reading it just manually half the time. So you can actually speed up the voice and have them talk a lot faster, which I think is a pretty cool feature on the specific voice thing. In any case, this has been a pretty exciting jump. I think XAI for the first time ever surpassed everyone in intelligence, but they still have some work to do on other areas. Elon Musk said that over the next in about 3 weeks, they will be training their video model. They'll be using Colossus, their 100,000 GPU cluster to do that. So he says it's going to be quite impressive. He also said he imagines by the end of somewhere next year, he imagines that Grok will start to discover new technology and perhaps new physics by the year after that. So this could be interesting. Is he talking up his own book? Is it hype? Who knows? We'll see. I am impressed that they beat everyone on the benchmarks. This is not easy to do. And so it essentially makes Grok the best AI model to use right now. But will that last forever? I saw a funny meme that someone shared, which essentially says September is OpenAI's turn. Gemini is lining up for the August spot. Anyways, that's just like this flywheel where there's like the logos of OpenAI, Gemini, Anthropic, and Grok, and it says introducing the world's most powerful model, and then it's an arrow introducing the world's most powerful model. Anyways, every AI, every big tech company just takes a turn every 3 months. We get the new latest best AI model by another company. Meanwhile, everyone's scrambling to try to catch up and release a model that's better. No one wants to release like the latest update and it's not as good as whatever's the front runner. So this is the way it kind of has to be. These models, they're not going to release a big announcement until they're better than everybody else. And so, yeah, according to this schedule, OpenAI should be coming out with something powerful soon, and then Google Gemini, and then Anthropic after that, and then we'll be back to Grok. It is interesting that these are the 4 companies that seem to be leapfrogging the number 1 spot. We had a bunch of big players like Mistral in the past that were kind of in the runnings for this. They feel like they've lagged behind, and these are kind of the big 4 winners. But I'll keep you up to date on if anyone else joins this, and if any of these companies kind of start falling behind like some of the other players. Anyways, thanks so much for tuning into the episode. If you want to try out all of the top AI models, make sure to go check out my platform, which is aibox.ai. I have the top 40 AI models on there that you can choose and use for $20 a month. You can chat with all the models in the same thread. Super powerful platform. Check it out, the link in the description. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I will catch you next time.